client bought this house in 2020. It had quite a large landscape, which was like a small holding, because there was a restriction on being able to build anything else on the landscape. And so what I found was I liked the design of the house. It was a chalet design, but I felt like the landscape didn't have much identity. So in 2021, we were asked to design and create the front garden area. And I decided to propose something that was a little bit more formal, with straight paths and these planting beds and quite a lot of shrubs to create enclosure at the front. So a sense that you could see the house, but it was still private. Then 3 years later, in 2024, I was asked to design the rear garden, which I was really pleased about because I could bring the whole property together as one design. The difficulty in the back garden with design was that there were veg plots, and we wanted to keep those in approximately the same place. We wanted to do something with height differences on the property. We didn't want to create too much building work, so we knew we could build some walls, but the budget was restricted to really building walls everywhere. The client also liked the idea of different spaces. They wanted one space that could potentially be used for grandchildren and the different play activities that they do, and another space that could be used for dining. So I came up with this idea of 2 circles and these curves that kind of spiraled around the circles, and these curves would also create terrace walls which would deal with the height difference to the neighbour. I like the idea of naturally dealing with height differences by having these walls that kind of swept around, and they gave this really clear sense of identity to the space, that there was this kind of sweeping curves. And then from that, the client wanted to create a greenhouse in this vegetable area. I wanted one access which was going into this wildflower area, which had already really been developed by the client, and another access that went from the seating area to this greenhouse. So I came up with this idea for a lawn that kind of spiraled around and joined onto this vegetable area. It was a bit like a wedge shape, which worked well almost with having this kind of circular access around the house. So we created an access and views from the house. We wanted to reduce maintenance and also primarily give a lot of the garden over to wildlife. And because they had such a large space to work with, it worked really well to create these wildflower areas and then to have a small area of well-kept lawn. So you can only see this in its first year, and this is a really good example of a landscape where there isn't irrigation, which is obviously there was a budget restriction and this was a choice from the client, and they're quite ecologically minded and they don't like to use a hose unless it's really required. So that's why the lawn's looking quite yellow, because we're kind of filming at a point where it's after a heat wave.